Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, we've got a really special guest for you today. I'm super excited about this show. Evan Marc Katz. Evan Marc Katz is the founder of Love You. He is a dating coach and the host of the Love You podcast. He's also an author of a great book that he published like 15 years ago, Why You're Still Single, Things Your Friends Would Tell You Even If You Promise Not to Get Mad. And you can find out more about Evan Marc Katz and his wonderful work at evanmarckatz.com. Welcome, Evan Marc Katz.
Thank you. You could just call me Evan. I appreciate the kind introduction.
Yes. Well, for our audience, I just want to say I owe Evan so much because about 6 years ago, I found myself single, and I did one of his online courses about getting over, a previous relationship. And then I hired his business. He has a business, eCyrano, which will write your dating profile. And there I was, and this is so hilarious. I'm the author of 10 books. but I hadn't done dating in over 20 years. And I'm like, what do I say on a dating profile? I had no idea. So anyway, I remember signing up, and I think I did the platinum or the highest level of the eCyrano. They wrote my dating profile. I remember thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. But it worked. And I started dating. And after 45 first dates, everyone always laughs in my face when I say that. I met my boyfriend on my 44th first date, and we have been together for 5 happy years. So I owe so much to Evan Marc Katz. And if you want to find your special person, listen to what he has to say. So, Evan Marc Katz, why is dating so hard, and what can we do about it?
Dating is hard. Dating has always been hard. I think just now we almost know too much, and we have infinite choices. So, predominant way that people meet these days is online, because real life is more fragmented, because everybody's got phones in their pocket, because people are remote workers or entrepreneurs. Real life doesn't provide nearly enough opportunity the way it used to. And so now we have to learn to navigate a very, very competitive medium. It is like job hunting online. It's what one has to do, but there is a skill set to it. And most people haven't taken the time to develop the skill set the way they have their professional skill set. So people who are really successful in real life, career-wise, are not always successful in online dating. And that feels very confusing and unfair.
Well, one of the pieces of advice that you give out, and I'll share this with our audience as well, is you tell everyone that you need to have 2 text messages and 2 phone calls before you even meet.
I don't want to be too literal about that. What you're referring to is something from my Finding the One Online program. I even did a TED Talk about it called No More Bad Dates. And I call it the 222 rule, but don't pay attention to 222. That's not the important part, right? Because with dating apps, even that's changed. The whole point is, in modern dating, everybody's become very instant gratification. You look at a photo on a site, you swipe right once on an app, you send a text message, you meet a total stranger for a date, or you'll spend 4 weeks texting someone good morning and nothing will ever get off the ground. Those are the 2 fates we want to avoid, is getting stuck in texting hell and going on terrible blind dates with total strangers who have absolutely no investment in you. So the way to do that is to make a stronger impression on the dating site or the dating app, have real conversation, the way you talk to a stranger on an airplane, like a real conversation with someone, and then schedule a phone call. Don't just exchange numbers and texts. That's how you get stuck. Schedule a phone call. That phone call is your first date. That phone call is your coffee date. If you can do a good FaceTime with someone and that call organically lasts for an hour and you want to meet, now you could feel really comfortable giving him 3 hours on a Saturday night. But left to our own devices, we all revert to the lowest common denominator, which is swiping, texting, meeting really, really quickly, especially if the person is attractive. And there's no courtship process anymore, and we're all party to it.
I was reading some article just yesterday, actually, about the website Tinder, and it said that Tinder was really terrible for women. And it was even hard for men because the good looking guys, it said one guy they set him up with 21,000 potential women, which is impossible. And another guy in the same period of time, they set him up with 7 women. So I know that when I followed your suggestions, I did the 2-2-2 rule and whatever, 2 messages, 2 phone calls, and that before I meet. And here I am, a professional intuitive, and you would think that would make it easier, but it's still something you have to go through. You still have to meet people. And there would be times when I would listen to a guy's voice. I mean, I'd be really excited, and then I'd hear his voice, and it's like, oh, I can't do this.
And that's part of the process. But I look at dating, maybe it's because I'm a dating coach, I look at dating as a skill set. Most people look at dating as this mystical thing, this love thing that's completely different than everything else, and it's not. This is changing careers. This is learning to play piano. This is getting healthy, going on a diet, right? There are best practices for how one can go about doing it. If you're interested in the best practices and you're willing to kind of follow a protocol to learn to navigate this better, you can have great success in online where most people really get frustrated and fail.
Well, and I agree with you because, as I said, when I tell people that it took me 45 first dates to find my guy, who I found on the 41st date, everyone laughs. But I hadn't dated in over 20 years. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, 45 is nothing.
That is nothing.
I got 300. It's not a joke. That's how you become a dating coach. You go on 300 dates.
Yeah, well, and will you share for everyone your story? Because I love your story, because it's how you became so good at what you do.
I mean, I don't think anybody's that interested in what I have to say about myself. Everybody's looking for advice, but the short version of my story is that I'm a screenwriter. I came out to Hollywood when I was 24 to write movies, and I came really close to success. I had agents and managers, and I won awards, and I went to film school, and I had no money. And so I got a job while I was in film school answering phones at an online dating company and getting yelled at in customer service by strangers, which is a really fun thing. And after about a year of doing it, I realized I knew more about online dating than anybody I was talking to on the phone, just because I was using the product and I was working at a company. So I wrote a book about online dating in 2003 called I Can't Believe I'm Buying This Book, A Common Sense Guide to Successful Internet Dating. And unlike my Hollywood career, my book career went really well. And that book got reviewed in Time magazine, and suddenly I was in USA Today and I was on CNN. And I was just a 31-year-old guy who was a failed screenwriter who had 2 skills, writing and flirting. So I started this business that you alluded to called eCyrno, right? Writing people's online dating profiles. And people would get their profile written and they'd say, oh my God, I'm getting so much attention. It's working so well. What do I do now? And I said, well, what do you mean, what do I do now? Well, I don't know how to do this. All right, let's go on to Match.com. Let's look up guys. Let's flirt. I don't know how to flirt. Okay, I'll show you how to flirt. And so necessity being the mother of invention, I just kept on iterating based on the things that women told me they needed until I ended up, all these years later, 15, 20 years later, with a 6-month curriculum called Love You, walking people through the entire dating and relationship process from confidence to commitment. And so it all sort of started organically by translating my own failures into something that ended up working. 5 years into coaching, I ended up meeting my wife using the same things I was coaching other people in doing. I was basically a hypocrite. I was giving advice that I wasn't following. And once I realized I wasn't following my own advice, I managed to course correct. And that's why I have now been married for 15 years. So I don't think I'm special at all. I think I've gone through the same exact trials and tribulations and failures and as everybody else who's ever tried this. But it never occurred to me that I was going to give up, and it never occurred to me that I was ultimately not going to achieve my dream. I think love's the most important thing in the world. And if you've been cowed by your failures or the perception that there's no good people out there, or your city is uniquely bad, or it's harder when you get older, those are all very common, normal, limiting beliefs that are preventing you from getting the real love you deserve.
Now, let's get down to it. What can a woman do on a first date to impact how much a man likes her?
Do you want this to be lecture or participatory?
Either way.
I'm going to include you in this one because I always like, people are here to listen to you, not just me. So what do you think a woman can do on a first date to ensure that there's a second date?
Well, one thing that I would do is I would have dating outfits, because as a woman, you're a little bit nervous when you're not a little, you're a lot nervous. So I would get my dating clothes organized. So I would just be like, right, pink dress, pink shoes. And another thing that I would do is I would make a list of things that I enjoy doing, so that even if the guy and I didn't click, at least I was having fun doing what I enjoy doing. So there's a Mexican restaurant near my house. We would go to the Mexican restaurant. Another thing I love to do is hike. So it's like how, I'd be out, meeting someone, going on a hike. So having the outfits, figuring out things that I would enjoy doing. So when the guy said to me, would you like to go on a date? It's like, okay, then, and he could feel successful because he would be doing something that would make me happy.
That's interesting and clever and somewhat predictable. That is almost what I anticipated that you were going to say.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with my answer, which is fine. Like that is what I would expect you to have said. But what gets lost in dating very easily, I'm not like, getting on your case for it. This is really, really normal. Is that men, unbeknownst to women, are all about feelings. Women think men are all about looks. Right? Looks will just get you in the door. Right? Every guy's gone out with a woman who had the right pink dress and the right pink shoes, and he was attracted to her from the second he saw her. Great, that's one hurdle. What about the next 2 hours? What's going to make him have a great night? And by the way, if I was coaching men, I could give you a laundry list of things that men should do on a first date. Right? Who's our audience here? Women or men?
Both.
Percentage-wise?
50-50.
50-50. Okay, then we're going to have to take the scenic route on this one. Will you let me take the scenic route on this one?
Absolutely, yes.
So a very typical guy situation. It's easier for women to hear this when I do the men one first. People go on dates and they have agendas. Right? An agenda is, what do I want to get out of this? You just told me your agenda. Hey, if I'm not going to have a good date, at least I could have a nice hike or a meal. On a good date, there's no agendas. Right? It's hard because humans have agendas. So take 2 guys who are at opposite ends of the confidence spectrum. There's a guy who's really, really confident. And there's a guy who's really, really insecure. Most people are in between. Guy who's really, really confident. What's his agenda for the first date?
Have sex.
Ding, ding, ding. See, you are intuitive. Right? See how far you can get. See what he can get away with. Right? How about the insecure guy? What's his agenda?
To get the woman to like her, like him.
Right?
Yeah.
Just impress you enough to maybe get a second date. Right? That's his bar. It's a lower bar. Okay. So, guy wants to impress you because he's insecure. Hey, Catherine, are you having fun? How am I doing? Am I going to see you again? Are you impressed yet?
Not really, because he's not confident.
Impress you, or the guy who talks about himself for 2 hours to impress you. Never impressive. Guy who's trying to get laid. Hey, here's another drink. It's 10 minutes into the date. Put my arm around you. What's the craziest thing you've ever done in bed? How's that guy doing?
Not well.
Right. So what do we see? The more transparent his agenda, the less likely he is to achieve it. The guy who tries hard to get sex doesn't get sex. The guy who tries too hard to impress is not impressive. Makes sense, right? So what do those men have to do to be a good date? They have to put aside their agenda. The thing you want don't matter. What does matter? What does she want? What does she want? A person who's a good date focuses on the other person's needs first and foremost. So, what does she want? She wants a man to call her on Sunday night, talk for an hour, make plans for the following Saturday, and have an agenda, meaning a plan. Right? Right. I know of a great Spanish restaurant. They have an excellent sangria. It's 10 minutes from your house. I'll pick you up at 8. Great. Now we've got a plan. Instead of texting you on Friday night, hey, you up? Right? Women like men with a plan. Now that he has a plan, you don't want him to disappear for like a week. Am I still going out with him? What's going on here? No, you want him to make an effort to keep in touch, to build up trust, rapport, excitement, anticipation. So now you're getting really excited. This guy who's been making a great effort all week is taking me out on Saturday night. Now you're feeling the butterflies. It's all exciting. He confirms the date the day before. He dresses appropriately. Right? Maybe he picks you up. Maybe you meet him at the restaurant. He's polite to the maitre d', to the waiter. Choose a place that's close to home for you so you're not too far out of your comfort zone, not too expensive where it feels like a lot of pressure, not too divey where you feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. It's an atmospheric place. Good call. He asks you questions about yourself. He listens to your answers. He doesn't hijack the conversation with his own complaints about his job or his ex or how terrible Match.com is. Right. End of the night, check comes, reaches for the check. No questions asked. I got it. Maybe it's only 10 o'clock. He knows of a place you could walk to from here for another round of drinks because it's too early to go home. Grabs the check, walks you to your car at the end of the night, gives you a kiss goodnight and says, I had a great time. I'll call you tomorrow. How's that for a first date?
That's a good first date.
Damn straight it is. You know why I know that? Because I went out with 300 women who told me how terrible I was. So once you learn, oh, that's what women want. What happens if you're a guy and you understand that? Now, I do the 20 things I just outlined. Magically, I achieved my original agenda. I've impressed you enough to get a second date. And maybe one day I could get some action too. That is an aha moment. When you really go through those machinations to get there, the guy who puts aside his agenda achieves his agenda. Got it so far? You see what we're building on?
Absolutely.
So that whole thing around, and that made sense to you. Doesn't it stand to reason that women have a secret agenda on dates too? Doesn't it stand to reason that if they put aside their agenda, they could have better dates too? So what is most women's secret agenda on the first date?
To find the guy of their life partner.
Figure out in 90 minutes what that guy's deal is, what his problem is. Does he have a good relationship with his ex? Is he close with his kids? Does he have some money? Does he have an addiction problem? Did he vote for the wrong party? I'm going to try to figure this out in the next 90 minutes. That's how most women go into dates, to assess whether he's her husband, as you said. So how do you think that date goes? Well, it goes as well as the guy who's trying to impress you and the guy who's trying to get laid. He can tell what you're doing. He knows what your questions are. This isn't a date, it's a job interview. So once you start interviewing men for the job of husband, the dates are not going to go very well. It's not fun for him. What is fun for him? Well, imagine I just told you a secret about the male agenda. He wants to impress you. He wants a chance of getting some action. So what is your job? Let him know you're impressed. Let him know there's a chance of getting some action. And that's literally all a woman has to do on a first date. I just listed 20 things a guy has to do. A woman has to look him in the eye, touch him on the hand, touch him on the knee, grab his arm when he's walking down the street, laugh at his jokes, ask him questions, compliment him on his shirt or his shoes or his funny story or his business acumen. Thank him profusely for planning this date and picking up the check, and kiss him goodnight when he kisses you. Congratulations. You're a great date. You're going to get a second date every time. That's how easy it is. And it has nothing to do with pink shoes, and it has nothing to do with a hike.
This is such great information. Now, hang in there, everybody. We're going to come back with more amazing information from Evan Marc Katz, founder of Love You. And we're going to listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. We'll be right back with Evan Marc Katz. So Evan Marc Katz, dating really is a sorting process, because when I went out on all these dates, there were plenty of nice guys. They just weren't my guy. How does a person determine whether to go out with the other person again?
That's one of the hardest things about dating. We talk about how this process is so difficult, right? Is when we've had a series of failed experiences, we had relationships that didn't work out, we go on a lot of first dates, we start to not even trust our judgment anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You go out with someone who's nice and you'd be like, I don't know, maybe I should give this guy a shot. My friends tell me I'm too picky. You know, what I've been doing hasn't been working. So people tend to vacillate. They're all over the place. It would be like waking up every day and choosing like a different career because you don't know what you want to be. Right? Oh, today I'm going to be a farmer. Tomorrow I'm going to be an investment banker. I mean, that would be chaos to not really trust yourself. And that's where most single people are at, because whatever they're doing hasn't worked. And I say that without any value judgment. I only work with single people. So how do you judge a first date to decide whether there's a second one? In Love You, week 8 is on first dates. And we do basically a simple 3-point checklist. We evaluate the person on that date in 3 categories: comfort, fun, and attraction. And if you go out with someone and on that date you're missing comfort, fun, or attraction, where it's like, if on a 1 to 10 it's like less than a 6, it's not a positive score, there's no second date. So we don't have to spend all our time making pros and cons lists, and it's not a checklist. It is, once again, listening to your feelings. Comfortable. Can I let down my guard? Could I be myself? Was I nervous the whole time? Did I get the sense this guy was a player and not trustworthy? Right? That's comfort. Just being able to relax and enjoy it. Some people think butterflies are a good first date. Not always. If you can't be yourself around a guy, where you get really nervous, you get really chatty, or you try to impress him, if you can't be yourself, it's not a good first date. So comfort's essential. Attraction is absolutely essential. A lot of women try to give a chance to the nice guy they're not attracted to. And again, there's a difference in a spectrum of attraction. Attraction that's a 3, we're not going to try to turn the 3 into a 6. But we can take a 6 and that can turn into a 9. It happens all the time. But there needs to be a baseline. Hey, I spent 3 hours with this guy. If he kissed me at the end of the night, would I recoil or would I kiss him back? Right? Do I have to have 6 beers to find him attractive? You do not need to talk yourself into it ever. And then finally, there's fun. There's lots of nice people out there who aren't your partner, and they're not much fun. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. Maybe they're introverts and they don't show their fun side till later. It is not your job to string them along or coach them up and hope it gets fun. You should want to go on a second date. I've never heard a story of a woman talking herself into a second date that went well, ever. And I'm a dating coach for 20 years. So I really want you to listen to your feelings, and this is men and women alike. Listen to your feelings, because your feelings are going to tell you a better story than your brain.
Great advice. Now that leads to the next question, which is how much chemistry is necessary for a successful relationship? Because if there's too much chemistry, then it's just 2 cave people, and it's not, it can be a little intense and there's no other connection. So what's your thought?
Chemistry is a necessary component of any relationship, as is a good sex life. You're not going to have a successful marriage if there's no attraction and there's not a good sex life. The thing that people who are happily married know is that in a good relationship, the sex is the icing on the cake. Bad relationship, the sex is the cake. That's all there is. It's just attraction and then a lot of turmoil and fighting and ups and downs. And so people tend to overvalue chemistry and sex when it comes to dating. And I'm not devaluing it. I'm saying that between chemistry and compatibility, you could trade off a little bit on chemistry if the compatibility is great. If you trade off on compatibility, you're going to just be another divorce statistic. Everybody who's ever been married was, in love, was attracted to each other, right? And 40% of them are divorced, 2/3 of married couples are unhappy. So again, there's lots of paths to happy marriage, but a lot of people don't know what it is because they undervalue compatibility or don't even know what compatibility is.
Now, what is mirroring and how can we use mirroring during the courtship phase of dating?
Are you familiar? Again, I don't want you to just stick with
Yes.
a pre-written list of questions here. What is termed popularly masculine and feminine energy?
Yes.
I don't like to make it sound like it's my creation. It's certainly not. For our purposes, masculine is about self. It's being proactive, my dreams, my ambitions, my career, my ideas. Feminine is more receptive. It's about supporting others, putting other people's needs first. Men and women both need to have both masculine and feminine energy. Right? Where this comes into play in dating is that for however we are biologically wired, however we are socialized, I'm not going to try to parse out where this came from. In general, women like to be pursued and men like to do the pursuing. Now, there are plenty of exceptions to those rules. It's not set in stone. But if you are attracted to more of an old school masculine man, hey, you're attractive, I'd love to take you out to dinner on Saturday night, I'll pick you up at 9, that guy, versus, you could call me sometimes, Catherine, you could ask me out too. There's a certain strain of guy who is more egalitarian. He actually functions more like a prototypical woman. It's not a bad guy. He can make for a great partner. But if you like to be pursued by a certain kind of guy, then the answer is to mirror the guy, which is to say to respond to his advances, but not to do any advancing yourself. Okay? That puts you squarely in your feminine energy. He calls, you call him back. He texts, you text him back. He says, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you. So you're mirroring his every action, but you're not initiating. And because you're not initiating, you're keeping your value high. You're not chasing him down. You don't have to remind a guy that you exist, right? A guy who likes you is going to call. My wife didn't call me for the entire time we were dating. Why? She didn't have to. Whenever I wanted to call her, I called her. And that's one of the things that's underestimated about men. If he wants to do something, he's going to do it. You should not have to cajole him or beg him into calling you more, seeing you more, taking down his profile. If he wants to step up to the plate and act like a boyfriend, he will. If he's not stepping up to the plate, he doesn't want to be a boyfriend that bad. So for a feminine woman who wants to date a masculine man, again, I hate to get stuck in those terms, doing nothing, mirroring, is usually the best course of action, which is hard when you are a proactive person in real life.
Now, you refer to yourself as a dating coach for smart, successful women. And what I find as a medical intuitive healer is that women really mess up their entire health if they're too young. So let's back up for our audience. And you mentioned this. So there's yin energy, which is the female principle. Yin is quiet. It is dark. It is earth energy. Yang energy is active. It's doing. It's sun and forceful. Whereas, as you say, yin energy is feminine. And what happens, what I find, is so many smart, successful women that you're talking about, they know that they have to go get things in their career. And by being constantly young, it runs down their adrenals. They end up with exhaustion and unhappiness. And when I'm working with women, part of what I do is talk about this yin yang balance in themselves. how can women, smart, successful women, find the healthy balance between the yin and yang principle within themselves?
I have a theory. It's not a scientifically valid theory. It's a theory from years of observation. That between trying to change your partner into the man you want him to be. Oh, Jim would be great if he only got a better job. Brad would be great if he only lost 20 pounds. Alex would be great if he worked on his anger issues. Between changing a partner and changing yourself is far more realistic. However, there's a caveat, and we swing that in the opposite direction. Between changing yourself and changing your choice of men, changing your choice of men is more realistic. All right. So if I spun you around there, I just want to clarify. You can never have a relationship dependent upon a man changing for you. If you don't like how your relationship is right now, get out. However, a lot of women who turn to me are masculine energy women, type A, successful in career. They want a guy who's more type A than they are. The problem is those guys aren't necessarily a great fit for her. So she spends a lot of time saying, I'm going to get into my feminine energy. That isn't who she is. It is very hard, if not impossible, to change your personality type. And I don't believe in doing that. If someone is an introvert, I'm not going to turn her into some extrovert seductress. That's not who she is. That's out of her comfort zone. Right? So I respect people's organic, and again, I'm not an intuitive healer. I respect people's organic personality, how they came to me as clients. And so my job is to get her to identify, where are you on this masculine feminine spectrum organically? Where are you most in your zone? Where are you happiest? Now let's find a partner who's a complementary fit for you. And that partner might not look exactly as you thought it was going to look. Right? I literally was just on a radio show earlier today with a woman in Mexico who's got an audience of millions of people, and she is a superstar. She is a sun. Any man who's going to be with her has to be a planet revolving around her because she sucks up so much energy. Not a bad person, just she requires that. She couldn't date another alpha because they would butt heads. They would want to be both the dominant person in the relationship. So you need to be with a partner who's comfortable with you being perhaps the more successful woman, or the more ambitious woman, or the more detail-oriented person. And that might just be an easier going guy, but you may not be attracted to that. You may not respect that. So that's where dating coaching comes in, is to help people sort of navigate this and find ultimately someone who is an organic, natural fit for them, rather than trying to contort themselves to be in a relationship where they're really out of their comfort zone the entire time. Does that make any sense? I know I kind of went.
Wonderful information. And with that, let's take another break to listen to a commercial sponsor for UK Health Radio. We'll be right back with the one and only Evan Marc Katz, who really tells it like it is in the world of dating. So you're talking about the kind of women who come to you for dating advice. So if a woman does make more money than most men, how can they go about finding a partner?
This gets into politically fraught territory, so I always want to tread lightly. Post-second wave feminism in the 70s, we've got women who are today, 40, 50 years later, get 33% more college degrees, more law degrees, more doctorates. And men are not doing as well as women in a lot of cases. The pay gap is largely being closed in big cities. So we're equals. Right? We need to embrace the fact that we're equals. The thing that's tricky is what women want and what men want hasn't entirely changed, but our roles have changed. So men, a lot of times, I'm not saying this is the only way to be, a lot of times men would like to have a woman who cooks him dinner and does his laundry. right? It's not that they are intimidated by the successful career woman. It's that he has that. He doesn't need that dynamic in his life. He already has that. If he has his own money, he's not looking to you for money. He's looking to you for feminine energy, for love, support, comfort. Right? That hasn't changed. But women don't want that anymore, which is perfectly fair. Right? And technically, now that she has been liberated, she has the education, she has the money, she shouldn't need some man to protect and provide for her anymore. That's an anachronism from years ago, that she went from her father's house to her husband's house. Now she's independent. So why does she need a guy who's got more money than she does? Right? So things have changed and gotten a little messy and blurry because women still want men who make more money. Men still want nurturing women. And our gender roles are now pretty much obliterated. And so everybody's trying to figure out how to navigate this better. And that's sort of where I see my job, is helping people make sense of these contradictory impulses and land in a place that feels good to them. And what I tell, and this is challenging, if a man made $250,000 and was dating a woman who made $50,000, right, he wouldn't let her pick up a check ever. If he did, she would say, "Who is this cheap guy? He makes 5 times more than me. I can't believe it." Flip it around. Woman makes $250,000, man makes $250,000. What are the expectations for that relationship about how they pay for things?
They would split things. Yeah.
Expect him to either take the lead and pay for everything during courtship, and then maybe split things 50-50, even though he makes 1/5 less. That, right, is a complete double standard. Most double standards work against women. As one double standard that makes no sense anymore, and yet is still true to this day, that women with more money expect men to still take on the same exact role, even if he makes less.
Oh, I thought you said they both made 250. So yeah, no, it was reversed. Got it.
Yes, I've been that guy.
Yeah.
When I started my business, I was the person who was making $50,000. I had a girlfriend who was making $200,000, and she was expecting me to go bankrupt dating her. Right? Where when the roles were reversed and I dated my wife and I made more than she was, it would never occur to me to make her split things 50-50. So I think we need to change with the times and the circumstances instead of getting stuck in gender roles. I like old school chivalry. If I'm giving advice to men, pick up the check every time, you can't go wrong. But once you become part of a couple, we have to reset not based on what your genitalia is, but based on your means. It makes no sense for someone who has more to pay, and you get my point.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end, because I have this conversation with my clients all the time. So wait, if I make 200,000 and he makes 100,000, so if I want to go to like Paris, like I have to pay for his plane ticket? Isn't that like, I don't like that. I mean, it feels like he's like a leech. I said, do you think that I think my wife is a leech? Do you think I should go to Paris without my wife because I make more money? So it's really hard for people to get over these deeply ingrained roles to meet where we are at as a society, which is a more egalitarian place.
And here we are talking about why dating is so hard and what we can do about it. So when during the dating process, do people need to talk about money and how we're going to handle money as a couple?
I think it's not something you talk about in early phase dating when you're first together, but once you solidify yourselves as a couple, you need to sort of reset the relationship. Otherwise, two reasonable people, I mean, again, I'm having this conversation with you, other people are listening, someone might be really bothered by what I'm saying right now. She might get very, very upset because I'm challenging her way of thinking. And reasonable people can disagree on this. Very reasonable people can disagree on this. So part of compatibility is figuring out how we could either naturally agree to disagree, or find a compromise that works for both of us and doesn't feel patently unfair. And so it is something that as a couple, you can't bury things ever. You can't bury things. You have to talk about things as they come up. The problem is people tend to negotiate this stuff in the first few dates. That's really not the time to be having this conversation.
So which brings me to the next topic where people have different expectations, which is sexual intimacy. So do you have any rules or suggestions on how to manage sexual expectations well during the dating process?
Another thing that's very personal, right? And I may have strong thoughts about it, but reasonable people can disagree. In my experience as a single man and as a coach, who does not believe that two people have to be in love to have sexual relations. I'm not judgmental about that. I don't have a moral stance on it. Do whatever you want. The important part is that women who are my clients don't end up getting hurt by putting themselves in a position they don't want to be in. And that's usually what happens, is people lead with attraction, men and women alike. I did it for many years when I was in my early 30s. You meet someone on a first date, second date, you feel really excited, you hop into bed with them, and either you keep sleeping together with an ill-defined relationship and you don't know where you stand, or you instantly call yourself a couple, right, after 4 hours together. You call yourself a couple as boyfriend, girlfriend, and don't discover until later that you're wildly incompatible, and you couldn't have told it until you crossed that threshold. So as a coach, I generally discourage people from having sex until they're clear that they want a committed relationship, not marriage, but boyfriend, girlfriend. That title, that old school 7th grade title, I think really matters. So I would tell women, I would tell men to try to vet each other, right? To really trust your feelings over the course of 4, 5, 6 weeks. While you're dating for those first 4 or 5 weeks, use foreplay like you did back in junior high school, right? Go around the bases, right? Take advantage of the fact that you're not sleeping together, having intercourse yet, and save that for a relationship. And if you save sex, intercourse specifically, for commitment, you're less likely to make bad decisions in those first few weeks that you end up regretting later.
Great advice. Now, why do you think dating is more complicated now than ever before?
I think for many of the aforementioned reasons, right? I mean, we've already touched on them. The changing gender roles in society, the advent of the internet, very specifically online dating and online dating apps on phones, right? And the fact that now we're presented by so many choices, everybody becomes a player, for lack of a better term, because it's the gamification of dating. It's a slot machine. So you take normal people in real life, back again, you and I are probably similar-ish in age. 25 years ago, you and I meet at a party, I talk to you for an hour, I get your phone number on a napkin, and I call you the next day, and that's my big accomplishment for the week, because I got a phone number at a party. That's news. That's huge. That's all I got, is that conversation at that party on Saturday night. Now, I get home from work, I turn on the TV, I eat dinner, and I swipe right on 500 women. That's how easy it is to get a phone number now. And if you have 500 phone numbers, doesn't it devalue every single one? How could you make anybody feel special? How could you differentiate between any of those? How can anybody differentiate you from the other people they're talking to? So the thing that was supposed to save us, to connect us, these phones, these apps, to remove the friction, to make it easier, has created an unintended consequence, which is that we have infinite choices. It's like ordering something off of a menu where there's 1,000 items. How do you decide on what you want to eat that night?
Now, I'm actually 63 years old. And, back when I was dating in college, you would have to know someone or know a friend of a friend or meet in person. So there was no internet dating. And so that's why I found your courses so helpful when it came to online dating, because I didn't know the game, right?
Right. And again, I know it's just verbiage you use, the idea of calling it a game. I don't think most people see it as a game, right? They feel that everybody's a game player, but the truth is most people are sad, lonely, confused, frustrated at how difficult it is to make a real human connection in this world. And I have no blame. I have nothing but sympathy for those people. But we are all convinced that everybody's doing something to us, and that's not the case. When a guy swipes on 500 women, you mentioned it earlier about Tinder. The reason he swipes on 500 women is because 95% of them won't swipe back. So dating apps, men get less than 5%, women get 62%. You're having completely different experiences. And the top 20% of guys are getting all the attention, so they have every woman to choose from. The bottom 80% of guys, right, are begging for table scraps. And bottom 80% is not, I mean, if you're in the top 80% of your high school class, you're doing fine. If you're in the 80th percentile of men online, you're starving to death because you're losing to the guys who are the cutest, shiniest guys on site. And so we all feel entitled to date up, to date someone who's more attractive, more impressive. Men do it, women do it. Old OkCupid study says everybody tries to date about 25% above.
And I'm really thankful for online dating because I would have never met my boyfriend without it. My boyfriend is a super lawyer. He's been named Lawyer of the Year 5 years in a row, undefeated in the US Supreme Court. He's a hotshot. We live in different worlds, but we have the same values. So when we do online dating, how can you find someone who shares the same values and who's the same on the inside, even if we're in different worlds?
The irony of everything that I'm sharing with you is that I'm on some level decrying the high volume approach to dating, right? At the same time, the high volume is the only thing that's going to make it work because we can't rely on the phone number on the napkin anymore. So the key to successful online dating is learning to say no faster. What most people do, they go online, first cute guy who shows a lot of interest in you, the first guy, cute guy who's really interested in you, he becomes the boyfriend. You block out everybody else. And that is like committing to a job, right? And pulling out your job applications from other places when you don't really have the job. And that's what women do all the time. They focus on the first guy who makes an effort that they find cute. He's my boyfriend. And the truth is, in Love U, we tell women, and we could say the same to men, you're the CEO of your love life. Men are the interns applying for a job with you. And you want to keep that corner office open until you have someone that you think could run this company for the next 40 years. So if you say yes to everybody because you're lonely or needy or whatever, operating from a place of fear or insecurity, you're going to tie up your office with the wrong guys over and over. I would much rather you talk to 10 guys online, meet one new guy a week for 20 consecutive weeks until you find one guy who's really worthy of being your boyfriend who you can invest in, instead of just taking the first one to come along. And that requires a lot of intestinal fortitude because most of us are a little scared, a little insecure, a little lonely, and likely to grab the first flotation device in the ocean.
So I met my boyfriend after a little less than a year of online dating. It was probably about 11 months. And I think it took me that long to kind of sort of understand what I was doing. What's a realistic amount of time that it takes for the average person to find a partner?
I've read differing things over the years. I've heard anything between 10 and 20 is pretty normal. I'm trying to go back to when I was single and filter through my own experience. I did a lot of things wrong when I was dating, which is why I coach this. The one thing I did right was not spend too much time with the wrong person. If it was someone that I didn't think I could marry or be happily married to. So I had a lot of 1 month, 3 month, 6 month relationships where other people would be like, oh, I dated John for 6 years. The past 4 were bad.
Yeah.
I never had that experience in my entire life. So it's really having actually a quicker trigger finger, because if you're dating the wrong guy, you can never meet the right guy. If you're with a guy who's not making you happy or a woman who's not making you happy, where the relationship drains you instead of lifts you, Your job is not to repair that relationship because you're in love or because one time you said you couldn't live without each other. It's right now. Is this relationship making me happy? If it's not making me happy, why am I staying?
So Evan Marc Katz, any final thoughts for our audience about how we can make dating a little bit easier?
I think if we treat dating as something we can get good at, so it doesn't seem so random. Why does this? I get a lot of questions from, why does this keep happening to me? What's wrong with men? What's wrong with my city? What's wrong with these dating sites? And there's always just someone else to blame. Let's think of it like our situations at work. We have a, we struggle to climb the corporate ladder and get recognized for our work and find allies at the company and feel well compensated and creative, and all those struggles. You don't think, oh, I'm just going to quit my job and be at home for the rest of my life. Too many people give up on dating in a way they would never give up on work. And so when we realize, oh, I can control at least 50% of this, right? How do I navigate the world knowing that I have control of 50% of it? The same as the rest of the world. We don't get to control global warming. We don't get to control everything in politics, but we can have our small say in how we navigate that. And once you realize that you have a say in how your love life goes, and you're not just a leaf blowing in the wind, this sort of haphazard thing. Why does this keep happening to me? Why do guys keep texting me and not asking me out? Why do guys keep sleeping with me and not committing to me? Why do guys date you for 2 years and not commit? It's because you were not paying attention to the signs the entire time, right? So there's always an internal solution. Whether you're willing to act on that or recognize that is, obviously a different story. But that's what the people who turn to me for coaching are the people who say, I'm tired of things happening to me. I want to control my own destiny.
Great information. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. This is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. And if you are in the dating world, sign up for Evan Marc Katz's newsletter. Listen to his podcast, Love You Podcast. Read his books. Take his online courses. He is telling you the truth. You can find out more about Evan Marc Katz and his wonderful work at his website, evanmarckatz.com. And remember, love is worth it. When you are in love and you are happy, you heal yourself naturally. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.